Yeah, the Sega Genesis. The Genesis was the console of my childhood. In the 90s, you were either a Sega kid or a Nintendo kid. Unless you were weird and behind the turbo graphics, which was like the Ross Perot of 90s video game consoles. Haha, 90s joke! I prefer the Genesis. After all, it had blast processing. And Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Or more like Genesis did what Nintendo didn't. But anyway, I want to talk to you guys about a gem for the Genesis. A diamond in the rough, if you will. Ranger X. Ranger X is one of those games that didn't get any kind of marketing and released with no hype. Which means, guess what? Nobody bought it. And that really sucks, because this game is phenomenal. Ranger X is one of those games that had a story, but didn't put it anywhere in the game. The game has an intro with some ships attacking a city, and when I was a kid, that just meant I have to stop them. But now I have the instruction booklet, and the instruction booklet tells me some ships are attacking the city, and you have to stop them! At least that's the story in a nutshell. There's something about the homeworld getting attacked and some other stuff. But trust me, this isn't a game you play for the story. After all, the ending makes absolutely no sense, and if you beat the game on easy, this is all you get. Yeah, that sucks. And even if you play the game on a harder difficulty to get the real ending, it still sucks. But I think that person getting kidnapped right there has some importance with the story. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This game is about the kick-ass gameplay. And it does. Kick-ass, I mean. Ranger X is an action-packed, side-scrolling shooter. The objective of the game is to explore every stage and destroy a number of targets. Before every stage, you get a really cool 3D cutscene. This is where the game will show you where your target is. It may not look like much, but in '93, this was cool. Now let's talk about Ranger X himself. Ranger X has a jetpack, as well as a motorcycle that he can combine with. One of my favorite things about Ranger X is you're never alone, you always have backup. Whether it's this flying thing or your motorcycle. My favorite thing about Ranger X's airship thing is that it always gives you air support. And it really does help you out a lot. I mean, there are plenty of times where this thing saved my life. Ranger X's main weapon of choice is his plasma rifle. But you can also get power-ups, like this flamethrower. He's also got grenades, dual homing lasers, a falcon that sits on your shoulder and completely obliterates everything, a giant power blast that takes up half the screen, and a flame spread shot. Every time you use these power-ups, you drain a little power bar on the bottom right corner of your screen. Ranger X is powered by light, so in order to fill your bar back up, you have to find a light source. And scattered throughout the first few stages are these little healing machines. These are only found in the first couple stages, and they use Ranger X's power. The game takes place across 6 stages. Each stage plays very different. Like take for instance the first stage. This stage is used to get used to the controls and fly around blasting stuff. And then there's a second stage which is very different. You'll be shooting power sources to disable turrets, and trying to find any light sources to replenish your power. And in the third stage, you have to divide your fighting between the ground and air. You can get your power back in the air, but all your targets are on the ground in the darkness. And then there's the fourth stage, which has you flying up a building, trying not to overheat your jetpack. And then there's the fifth stage. The fifth stage is a semi-stealth mission, because if you get spotted by these spotlights, you get swarmed. And then there's the sixth stage. This stage being the final stage, they try to throw everything at you. And at the end of every stage, there's a boss battle. And this game has 90s boss battles at their best. Every boss in this game pretty much takes up the whole screen. This game even has a boss that takes up more than a screen. Like this one. That's pretty much a giant supercomputer. Ranger X's controls are perfect. They take a little bit of getting used to, but they're designed for the Genesis controller. They work like this. To shoot right, you push C. To shoot left, you push A. The controls are like this for a reason. In Ranger X, you have to do a lot of firing while moving backwards. And with the Genesis's 3-button controller, this was the best way to set it up. The B button is used to fire your power-up. One of the very few gripes I have with this game is that you have to get inside your airship or motorcycle in order to change your weapons. I mean, yeah, I understand they ran out of buttons, it's just this got a little bit annoying. especially when you're fighting bosses and there's bullets everywhere. This game is pretty hectic on the easy and normal settings, but on normal it's just challenging enough. But playing it on the hardest difficulty is just crazy. This game will do its absolute best of trying to destroy you on the hardest difficulty. If you haven't noticed yet, Ranger X is a beautiful game. Not only is this one of the best looking games on the Genesis, but I think it's one of the best looking games of the 16-bit era. All of the sprites are incredibly detailed, and is always filled with action with not too much slowdown. Ranger X has a brilliant use of its color palette. It can set a dark mood by still being colorful. And I really never get tired of this game's explosions. And it seems like almost every enemy gives off a different type of explosion. And this game also has some really cool looking 3D effects, as well as some cool stuff like enemies busting through walls. And then there's Ranger X's soundtrack, which is really good, but the only problem is there's so many explosions happening at almost all times you can barely hear it. But overall this game has a great soundtrack, and I must say I really love the final stage music. That's Ranger X, and this game is truly great. If you have a Genesis, you should do your best to try it. The game goes for about $10 online, and I think it's definitely worth the price. I really wish this game was more popular, because I would have loved to see a sequel, or a possible remake on a current console. Of course I mean like a 2D remake on Xbox Live or PSN. But most likely, a remake for this game isn't happening, so the only way to play it is to enjoy the original. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that review of Ranger X, and keep in mind, September 24th is the 1-year anniversary for GamePow Masters, and also the 1-year anniversary for Co-op Heroes. So, there's a very special episode for the 1-year anniversary of the channel and the show, which will be this Saturday the 24th. So be sure to check it out. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.